It's funny how life works out sometimes. You may be moving through life thinking everything is great, and then life, God, destiny, or whatever your belief system calls it, just decides to trip you up. I was going through life with the wind in my sails when suddenly the wind just stopped blowing. While I waited for the next rush to get back to where I belonged, I had to keep busy. So I ended up hunting for girls of easy virtue in a not very pleasant area on the outskirts of Washington. They call this place the Quarter. It's about half a square mile where you can find almost anything for the right price. My bright yellow Mustang GT stood out among all the BMWs and Lexus that slowly rolled down the boulevard. It was louder and more aggressive, announcing our presence with the confidence that nearly 500 horsepower and a few semi-legal modifications to the exhaust and engine systems can provide. Combined with its ultra-bright coloring, my pony always attracted attention. I looked through the tinted glass and was disgusted by most of the women and other creatures that turned their attention to me. How the hell did I get to this point? I wasn't actually that bad. I simply suffered from heartbreak, loneliness, and despair, the basic ailments of a divorced man. My name is Jason Burton. I am currently the Chief Operating Officer at Navaro Logistics. I'm not some awesome Nordic god. I'm just an ordinary guy, average in height and weight. My appearance, while not exciting, hasn't kept too many women away from me either. So, having decent looks, a great career and future, a good personality, why am I chasing cheap sex? In short, what's a decent guy like me doing in a place like this? Fair question, I'm still confused myself. But here's how it happened. During my senior year of college, and no, not logistics, I was studying business, I met Dana Navaro. Her father, Kurt Navaro, used to play professional baseball, and after finishing his sports career, he immediately went into business. Dana was tall, slender, and attractive. The worst part was that she knew it. Her family was richer than some countries, and studying was just a joke for her. Everyone knew that she would never have to work a day in her life. I proudly maintained my 4.0 GPA and worked 2 part-time jobs to survive. Dana was hanging out at parties with her stable C/D+ and having a great time. She was on the verge of being expelled because of one grade and faced a problem. Her problem was Mr. McQueen and his accounting course. Victor McQueen was a local small business owner and college teacher. He took his subject very seriously and believed in a strong work ethic. If you work hard in his class, you will succeed. If you play the fool, you fail, no matter who you are. He had little patience for spoiled rich girls who thought they could pass the course because of their stunning looks and donations from their daddy. It was a case of an unstoppable force colliding with an immovable object. For our final project for the course, my best friend Tom and I were assigned to work with Dana. Tom hated this idea. "Just watch," he said. "She won't do any of the work, but somehow she'll get all the credit for the project." While working on the assignment, Dana and I somehow found a common language. For some reason, she liked me. I didn't understand this, so I was wary, though she was just trying to get me through the project, and that once it was completed, I wouldn't be able to come within a mile of her anymore. She'll go back to her rich, crazy friends as soon as the ink on the report is dry. In the end, even Mr. McQueen was impressed not only by our report, but also by seeing Dana and me reading books late at night several times. We received an A+ for the project, which raised Dana's grade to a solid D+. Tom and I went bar hopping to celebrate our A's. It was one of the few times we actually got drunk. The next morning I felt terrible, but luckily I had no classes, so there was no reason or desire to get up. I had to go to work at 3 p.m. At 9 a.m. it felt like someone was hitting me on the head with a hammer. In fact, someone was knocking on the door. I looked through the peephole and saw Dana. I opened the door, and she rushed inside. I think she noticed before I did that I was only wearing panties and a t-shirt. "Where were you last night?" she asked. "I called you at least 10 times and left messages. The least you could do is call me back," she blurted out. "Dana, Tom and I went out yesterday," I said. "We wanted to celebrate the end of McQueen's tyranny. So if we were out and about, I couldn't check my phone for messages," I explained. Why don't you forward your messages to your cell phone? She asked. That would be difficult, I began. Oh, it's not that hard. I could show you how to do it, she said. Dana, it's really hard to forward messages to a cell phone when you don't have one, I said. So what happened? I asked. Has McQueen changed his mind about our assessment? Well, no, she said, lowering her eyes. Oh, do you need a copy of the report for your portfolio? I asked. Does it have to be about the damn project for me to talk to you? She exploded. I put both hands on my ears and fell on the sofa. The throbbing in my head only added to the confusion. Dana leaned over me and looked at me with an expression I had never seen on her face before. It seemed to be anxiety. Are you okay? She asked. I have a huge hangover, I told her. Okay, let's go get some coffee, she said. Whatever, just don't say it so loud, I said. I stood up and headed towards the door. Jason, Dana said. Yes, I said, looking at her. Clothes, she said, as if she were talking to a 2-year-old child. So I got dressed and we went to the cafe on the corner. I took a cup of hot black coffee with extra sugar. Dana took some kind of airy drink with caramel, cinnamon, and cherry. She looked at me through our coffee cups and looked so good that I was ready to do anything for her at that moment. If I had known then that those 2 cups of coffee would lead to lies, divorce, blackmail, mind games, and easy-to-get girls, I probably would have run out of the cafe as if scalded. Okay, Dana, what do you need? I asked, taking a sip from my hot cup. Life began to make sense now that I had caffeine in my system. I don't understand, she said seriously. What do you need from me? I asked again. I still don't understand, she said, even more seriously. Why did you call me last night? I asked, trying not to add spirit before the question. Why should I have a reason to call you? She asked. Do you have a jealous girlfriend or some other reason why I shouldn't call you? No, I said, still confused as to why the school princess wanted to call me. Then why can't I call you? She asked. Because girls like you don't call guys like me, I said objectively. Dana, your phone is probably worth more than my car. You're beautiful, you're rich, you. I hesitated. What am I? She asked. I like that you called me beautiful. I'm not rich, my father is rich, but what else am I? You're out of my league, I said seriously. Either you're not as smart as I thought, or your head is stuck so deep in your ass that all you see is crap, she exploded. A fire lit up in Dana's eyes. Haven't you noticed that we get along very well, she said. I have fun when we're together. You're very smart, but you don't try to show it by making others feel stupid. You're funny and you're quite cute. I really like you. So would it be wrong if we were friends? She asked. Since then, we have never looked back. Our friendship quickly grew into dating. Then we became a couple, which completely stunned me. I met all or almost all the rich and beautiful people whom I had previously only seen from afar. Although I could never become one of them, a kind of mutual respect had developed between us thanks to Dana. About a month before graduation, I actually met Dana's father. He invited us to dinner, mainly to get to know me. Dana dated 8 or 9 guys in her first 3 years of college, and when the carousel stopped, he showed interest. I was very impressed with him. I expected to see an old jock who spent all his money on baseball, but he turned out to be a very dynamic businessman, firmly focused on his goals. In turn, he asked me to stop by for a meeting with him before I accepted any post-graduation offers. I started working at Navaro right after graduation, and it was a nightmare at first. I didn't realize it, but Kurt had a plan for me. Apparently, I made a greater impression on him than I thought. He gave me a job. A fresh graduate with a diploma, I worked at Navaro Logistics. I probably had the worst job on earth. I was a loader on the night shift, the lowest level. That was my career, I thought. But it was money, probably the same as what I would have made in an entry-level sales or customer service representative position. So I decided to try to hold out for a while because I didn't want to burn any bridges with Dana's dad. Dana, on the other hand, was furious. She called her father every day, complaining about how insulting it was for a man with a business degree who had graduated with straight A's to work as a baggage handler. She also complained that my night shift work interfered with our dating schedule. Within a few weeks, I became the best mover on our premises. I could look at the way the boxes were stacked and rearrange them to fit more into the truck. The foreman always gave me larger and more important loads to pack. He always praised me in front of his boss. One night while I was working, I was assigned another mover that I had never seen before to work with me. This guy was almost as fast as me. He was larger and I couldn't see his face. When we were inside the truck, he was almost always in the shadows, and he kept his cap pulled down over his eyes. While we worked, we talked. Why do you spend so much time planning where to put things instead of just throwing them in place and moving on? He asked me. You could be even faster and make the company even more money. There are almost no people faster than me, I said. Oh, I understand, he said. You work fast enough to stay ahead of everyone else, but not so fast that you get tired. That's smart. That's not true either, I said. He looked even more puzzled. What's the most expensive thing to transport? I asked him. He thought and said, probably heavy metal parts. No, I said. He thought a little more and said, okay, I give up. Air, I said. He looked even more puzzled. The more I can fit in a truck, the fewer trucks we have to pay for. Any empty space in a truck costs the company a lot more than the few seconds it takes me to fill it, I said. We finished loading in silence. I thought I gave him something to think about. I worked alone for the rest of the night as we were given different trucks after that. When my shift ended, I was told to go to the office. My boss gave me a stack of papers and told me he would miss me. I was upset because I knew Dana would be angry, but I gave it my all. And on the bright side, I thought that at least now I could find a real job. As I read the papers, it suddenly became clear to me that I had not been fired, I had been promoted, and it was a significant increase. I jumped a few positions to boot dock manager. This put me above not only my old foreman, but also his boss, who was the loading dock supervisor. I also had a new job to do at a different location across town, and it was a day shift. I went to Dana's apartment to tell her the good news, but she wasn't home. I didn't like being in Dana's apartment without her, so I went home to sleep. As I was getting into the car, I saw another car approaching the building. Dana came out and leaned over to kiss some guy. I was in shock and didn't know how to react, so I just sat there. Then I finally went home and went to bed. It was a Friday morning, and I needed to give my body a chance to adjust to the day shift, so I just took a nap and got up around noon. I went and got my hair cut. I was given a bonus along with my new position, so I bought a couple of suits that fit my new position. Up until this point, I'd go to work at 8 a.m., sleep until 4, and then Dana and I would go out. We were usually together from 4 when I woke up, before I had to go to work. There were many days when I woke up to Dana sliding into bed with me and speeding up my heart with her skills. So when I heard my cell phone ring around 3:30, I knew who it was. I just let the call go to voicemail, and so did everyone else. I called my friend Tom and agreed to meet him that evening for a drink. I had one more visit before returning home. I was ushered into an office that was larger than my apartment in less than an hour. Mr. Navaro, thank you for having me, I began. First of all, I would like to thank you for the promotion, I said, but I don't really understand it. You think I promoted you because of my daughter? He asked. The thought has crossed my mind, I said. Jason, I love my daughter and my sons, he said. I would do anything in the world for them. When I'm gone, I want them to still be provided for, he continued. To do this, I need to make sure my business is in good hands. He walked through the office and approached a framed photograph of Dana. Do you really see my daughter running my business? He asked. She could learn, I said. She's smart and she's good with people. Says the man who loves her, he said. But you only mentioned her good points, and her brothers are even worse. I saw how you helped my daughter pass her accounting course and saved me a lot of trouble without much effort, he said. Professor MCC. Professor McQueen wasn't someone who could be influenced or bribed, but you helped her pass his course, and she really cares about you, he said. So I decided to test you. On paper, you seemed too good to be true, so I wanted to meet you in person, and I liked what I saw even more." He paused, as if thinking about something or changing tactics. "My daughter is really in love with you and probably wants to marry you, but I wanted to find out more about you myself," he said. "So instead of giving you a comfortable job in sales with a quick promotion, I put you in the deep end. I wanted you to learn my business from the very bottom. I put you in the shit, and you still came out shining like a diamond," he continued. "But what you told me last night really showed that you understood and were better than I hoped." "When did I talk to you last night?" I asked, confused. "When we loaded that truck together," he said, taking out the hat he was disguised in. "For the last 3 weeks, everyone has been talking about how well you're doing," he said. I wanted to see it for myself. And since I sometimes go in and load up a couple of trucks myself, so as not to forget where I came from, I decided to see it with my own eyes. He smiled at me as he said this, and I saw that he had not lost that killer instinct that makes great athletes great. He just channeled it into business instead of sports. "I tried it with both my sons," he said. "Neither of them lasted an hour. Now they both have jobs at companies with very important titles that don't really mean anything. But you really impressed me. So you deserve the promotion yourself," he said. "It had nothing to do with Dana. Let's see what you can do next." I left the building happier than ever and at the same time depressed. On one hand, the promotion was great, and I was proud of myself for earning it. But I knew it probably wouldn't last because it was all over with Dana. We weren't married, we weren't even engaged, so legally what she did, or what I thought she did, was not cheating. But I still couldn't stand it. Hell, I didn't even know what she did. All I saw was her kissing some guy as she got out of his car. Maybe he just picked her up on the road, and it was a thank you kiss for the trip. It was implausible, but possible. Dana and I had a lot to talk about, and I was in no hurry to do it. But before we could talk, I had to know what was going on, and I had an idea on how to find out. I went to Dana's apartment and made sure she wasn't standing near the building. I spoke to the doorman Ernie. Ernie was a really nice guy and would often let me know about Dana's problems with things or people in the building. Like me, he was a hard worker. He went to college and, like me, worked to pay for his education. He often told me how lucky I was to have Dana. And I often told him that I expected this trip to end soon because girls like her just don't end up with guys like us. Ernie told me frankly that everything was about as I expected. While I was working at night, a girl like Dana wasn't going to sit on the shelf and wait for me. Dana went out 2 or 3 nights a week and often stayed overnight. He even told me that there were at least 3 or 4 different guys. I knew he felt for me, but not as much as I felt for myself. It felt like I had a lump stuck in my throat that I couldn't swallow. No matter what I did, it didn't go away. I told myself that I had always treated Dana like a princess. I never cheated on her, so at least one of us could leave the relationship with our heads held high. After I talked to Ernie, I went back to my apartment. After a few minutes, I realized that returning home might not be the best option. I was sure Dana would be there. As luck would have it, my cell phone rang again and Dana's smiling face appeared on the screen. The only difference was that now I knew why that bitch was smiling. The only question I had was why she continued this farce with me. Why didn't Dana just leave me alone and go have as much fun as she wanted? I was obviously just a nuisance, so getting rid of me would free her up to have fun. I went to Kinko's to use their office and wrote her a letter. I gave it to Ernie and asked him to give it to Dana the next time she returned from one of her late nights. I then called and left Dana a message on her home phone saying I had an emergency and would be back late on Saturday. I thought it would give me time. I went to meet Tom. We went to a bar he went to sometimes. The drinks were strong and the bartenders were cute. It almost made me forget about Dana. We talked for a long time about everything that happened to us after graduation. He laughed until he cried when I told him about my job as a loader. But when I told him about my new position, I noticed that he was jealous. Later, he asked about Dana, and I felt a little sad. I had a couple more drinks, and it was time to head home. My body was alert because it was the time when I was usually at work. Perhaps Dana received my message because she hasn't called me for a couple of hours. A couple of girls who were looking for fun tried to contact us, but surprisingly, I wasn't interested. I felt like such a failure because I knew what Dana was probably doing at that very moment. I apologized and went home. I tossed and turned all night, partly because my body had not yet adjusted to daytime mode, and also because I couldn't get Dana out of my head. It seemed like I was just starting to fall asleep when the door opened. Naturally, it was Dana. I forgot she had a key. She entered the room quietly, still holding my letter in her hands. For some reason, she was crying. "Dana, just take your things and leave," I said. She jumped up in surprise when she heard me. "You scared me to death," she said. "What are you doing here?" This is my apartment," I replied. "I live here. I assume you were getting ready to leave." "Jason, can't we talk about this?" she asked, sobbing. "Dana, what is there to talk about?" I asked. "You win. You always get what you want, so this time shouldn't be any different." "What are you talking about?" she sighed. "Listen, Dana, let's not do this. I'm tired and want to sleep," I said. "I never expected us to last this long, so I don't blame you. We've been on borrowed time since the day we met." Dana cried and shook her head negatively. "So things will be better now," I said. "No more hiding. You can just keep having sex with whoever you want." When I said this, Dana's head shot up. "What can I do?" she asked, looking at me. "I haven't touched anyone since we started dating," she blurted out. "I went out and partied, got drunk, used, and shouldn't have done that," she said. "Jason, I was so lonely and bored while you were at work. But I would never have thought about having sex with anyone other than you," she blurted out. "I love you, idiot." We looked at each other for a while, and I really wanted to believe her. "Why couldn't you just tell me?" I asked. "Because, honey, you have problems," she said. "When it comes to my friends and even you and me," she continued. "In your head, you always seem inferior to everyone else. So if I told you I was going to parties with a few old friends, some of whom are guys," she said, "I knew you'd go crazy." "Look me in the eyes and tell me you didn't cheat on me," I said. "I didn't cheat on you," she said very seriously, looking straight at me. Perhaps I was stupid, but I really didn't see any trace of lies or deceit in her eyes. Maybe I just wanted to believe her. Even as she said this, she was already taking off her clothes. First, she removed the clip from the back of her head, allowing nearly a meter of her blonde hair to flow freely. They went down her shoulders and fell onto her chest. We had sex. This incident should have been an awakening for me, but it wasn't. I never knew if Dana lied to me about cheating, but I loved her so much that I really wanted to believe her. Dana had a deep need to be the center of attention, and when she wasn't, she did bad things. 2 days later, I started my new job, while Dana found ways to spend my new salary. The new schedule allowed us to be together more often, and our little crisis was forgotten. I think deep down I still felt like I had won the lottery and would wake up any moment, but I wasn't going to complain as long as everything was going great. Things couldn't have gone better at work if I had planned them myself. Over the next few months, I developed loading techniques and optimized all of our loading centers, saving the company a lot of money through increased efficiency. Almost immediately after the paint dried in my office, I was promoted again. My meteoric rise in the company was often attributed to my dating Dana, but those who knew my work knew that was not the case. I adopted Kurt's habit of showing up unannounced and in disguise to load a couple of trucks to remind myself where I started. This really helped me stay grounded. A few weeks ago, I met Kurt, and he loaded a truck with me, complaining that after I computerized our loading system, almost anyone could load trucks as efficiently as I used to. "You've taken all the art and skill out of this," he complained. "Yeah, but you make a lot of money," I told him. While we were working, I told him that I wanted to transfer our routing system to computers. Routing was currently done the old-fashioned way with the help of a large schedule of maps and diagrams. I was confident that by computerizing it, we would become more efficient, and this would allow us to combine several routes from different centers and save even more money. After an hour of discussion, Kurt told me to continue. At Thanksgiving, Kurt's usual no business at the table rule was broken when I brought up my latest idea. We had a policy of buying our trucks and selling them after reaching a certain mileage. We always bought trucks for the high mileage they put on them. If we had rented them, mileage fees would have cost us money in the long run. I proposed creating a subsidiary company, Navaro Truck Rentals, with two of my colleagues to make more money on trucks and generate additional profits. Kurt really liked the idea and asked who these colleagues were and where I found them. He said that once he ran the standard background checks, we could start, but I would have to rely on them more than I expected because he wanted me to stay with the parent company. "Trust me, Kurt," I said. "You don't need to check their backgrounds." "Who are they?" he laughed. "Jesus and Moses." "No," I laughed in response. "You'd still want to check them out." "Then who?" he asked seriously. "George and Kurt Jr.," I said. The conversation got even more serious after that, and Kurt asked several questions, which we answered quickly and efficiently. Kurt said it seemed like a good idea, and he would look at our proposal after the holiday weekend. I could already tell he was very happy with the idea and having his sons play a significant role. The real highlight of that first Thanksgiving dinner was Dana's not-so-surprising announcement that we were engaged. So everything went great for a while. My career was on the rise. I was in love with a beautiful woman who loved me back. We got married, bought a house, traveled, did all these fun things, and settled down. About 7 years later, the shit hit the fan. I had just returned from a conference trip in Chicago, wasn't expected until Friday, and was daring to return home on Thursday. As I pulled up to my house, I noticed a strange car in my driveway. Dana probably invited her friend, I thought. Wonderful. I come home to spend time with my wife, and we have guests. As I walked up the stairs, I heard a man's voice. "Take it, bitch. You know you want it." I recognized that voice too well, and my heart almost stopped. I opened the door to the guest room and saw Tim Pritchett, the guy I went to school with, having sex with Dana. For the first few minutes, I was too stunned to do anything. Suddenly, Pritchett turned and saw me. His eyes became as big as saucers, and he began to lie. "It's not what you think, Jason," he said. As soon as she heard my name, Dana opened her eyes and started screaming. This brought me out of my stupor and into action. I grabbed Pritchett by the neck and pulled him off the bed. I punched him in the face and then slammed his head against the wall. Then I dragged him down the stairs by one leg and threw him out the door, still naked. I closed the door and went back upstairs. Dana was still lying on the bed, fast asleep. She smelled like a brewery or a distillery, I didn't know which. I wondered how she managed to fall asleep while I was beating her lover. I packed her suitcase and went downstairs to put it in her Lexus. Her car wasn't in the driveway or in the garage, so I went back into the house and found Pritchett's keys in his jacket. I put Dana's suitcase in the trunk of his car. As I started to walk back into the house, I noticed Pritchett was hiding in my bushes and appeared to be crying. When I went to him, he started to run away. I easily caught up with him and turned to face him. It's good that our house is surrounded by bushes. I didn't want to explain to anyone why I was dragging a naked, crying man. "Please don't hit me again, I'm sorry," he cried. "You weren't supposed to come back. Dana said you wouldn't be there and that everything was fine." "Look, I'm not going to hit you," I said. "Why are you still here?" "I can't go anywhere, I don't have my keys, and I'm naked," he sobbed. "What are you willing to do for your keys?" I asked him. "Anything," he said. "Stay here," I told him. I went upstairs and took my new video camera. I recorded Pritchett admitting that I caught him in bed with Dana, and he also admitted that this was not the first time they had sex. I then lifted Dana from the bed in the guest room and carried her downstairs. Out of respect for her parents, I covered her with a sheet. I then downloaded the video to my computer and emailed it to her father. I gave Pritchett her parents' address and told him to take her straight there and not stop anywhere. I reminded him that I still had his wallet, so I knew where he lived. I then gave him the keys and watched him drive away, still naked. I sat down at the computer and typed out my resignation letter, sending it to Kurt and copying it to several other people in the company who depended on me, including my brothers-in-law. Then I called Tom and went for a beer. Friday morning, before I woke up, all hell broke loose. Someone was banging on the front door, the phone was ringing, my cell phone was also ringing, and the computer was telling me I had an email. I looked out the window to see who was at the door. Of course, it was Dana. I pulled on jeans and a shirt, grabbed my wallet and keys, and ran to the bathroom. I shaved and brushed my teeth to look presentable and walked out the kitchen door into the garage. I got into my favorite car, a bright yellow Mustang GT. I started the engine and pressed the button on the remote to open the garage door. Dana ran into the garage just as I started to drive out. "Jason, we need to talk," she said. "Dana, if we need to discuss anything, it should be through our lawyers," I said. "Why do we need lawyers?" she asked. "Dana, are you high?" I asked her. "I caught you having sex with that slippery Tim Pritchett." "I was drunk and lonely," she whined. "He told me it wasn't the first time, Dana," I said. "This isn't the first time you've left me alone either," she said. "This isn't the first time you've been caught doing something you shouldn't either," I said. "But because I'm traveling for work, is that a good enough reason for you to break our marriage vows and cheat on me?" I asked. She simply lowered her head. "I promise I won't do this again," she said. "Dana, you promised me this the first time," I said. "Ask your mom or your brothers to come and get your things, Dana. I'll be home tomorrow." I put the car back into gear and started to drive away, but then I stopped and added, "And Dana, don't come with them. I don't want to see you again until I have to be in court." I drove away, leaving her standing there and crying. I drove around all day and made a few calls, found a very good divorce lawyer, and met with her, explaining how I wanted to proceed. I didn't touch our assets because although Dana would never need money from me, I wanted to be fair in the distribution of our assets. Therefore, I decided to wait for the lawyers, and we will decide everything after we find out who will represent her interests. I thought it would probably be the company's legal team. As I was leaving my lawyer's office, I received a call from Verna, Dana's mother. "How are you, Jay?" she asked, her voice truly sounding caring. "I can come Monday with a truck to pick up Dana's things," she said. "But it's probably best if you just let her pick up her things while you're at work on Monday." "Verna," I said, "I'll do whatever you want. I've always loved her mom. This woman epitomizes class. So I'll just leave on Monday and you can call me when it's over. If you come over for her, let me know and I'll help you move her things." "No, you have an important meeting on Monday," she said. "Also, Dana will not be taking all of her belongings, just her clothes and personal items." I began to think Verna was losing her mind. "Why doesn't she want to take all her things?" I asked. "She's going to fight for a divorce," Verna said. "And Kurt didn't accept your resignation," she added. "Jay, I know this is hard, but we'd like you to come over for dinner tonight to talk about it." So I agreed to go to their place for dinner in the evening, if only to dot the I's. That evening turned out completely different from what I expected. Verna hugged me when I walked through the door. As we sat down to dinner, Kurt exploded. "What the hell is this about firing you?" he said. "Well, I didn't think it would be good for my future career if I got fired," I said. "So I thought it would be best to resign to make things easier for everyone," I continued. "This way you won't have to fire me and I'll have a good resume." "Forget it," he said. "I love my daughter very much," he said. "But you didn't do anything wrong, neither to her nor to the company. What do you think made her do this?" he asked. "I wish I knew, sir," I said. "If I had known, I would never have allowed it." "Well, you should know that we stay out of this," he said. "We won't pick sides," he continued. "You two have to figure this out on your own." Kurt kept his word. He did not allow the company's legal team to represent Dana, but she found herself a great divorce lawyer. Great, I thought, if this guy is so good, we will quickly get a divorce. A quick divorce was not part of their plans. Dana's lawyer chose a different tactic. It was very nice, also expensive, and I had to pay for it since Kurt didn't support her. She's your wife, not mine, he told me. In any case, Dana's lawyer used all the dirty tricks to delay and delay the process. At every turn, he missed appointments and rescheduled them. At the same time, he filed all sorts of documents in court, including one move that shocked me. He argued that Dana, who had more money than me based on her trust fund, was homeless and had to remain in the residence until the court made a decision. At the same time, he notified me that I could not move because then I would be charged with abandonment and I would likely lose my home. The court then ordered counseling, a long period of individual counseling for both Dana and me, and then couples counseling. I was considered normal. Dana had problems that could fill an entire magazine stand, not the least of which were alcoholism and several complexes associated with a constant need for attention. The day Dana returned home, our 5-room house became significantly smaller. Wherever I was, she appeared, so I spent a lot of time at work that week. The first night I had just gotten into bed when Dana came into the bedroom, wearing only the tiniest panties I had ever seen, and lay down next to me. As much as I hated her, I couldn't deny that her body was causing a reaction in mine. I threw off the blanket and walked into the other room in pure disappointment. The next night, I started sleeping alone, but after I fell asleep, she crawled into bed with me and wrapped her long legs around mine. I dreamed that I had her, and the dream was so real that I could actually feel her hands on me. Then I woke up and noticed that she was in bed with me and her hands were in my panties. She simply smiled at me and did not remove her hands. I stood up and walked back to our bedroom and locked the door. Every morning I left for work, and Dana went to her sessions with psychotherapists and Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. She also gave me the same speech every morning. It went like this: "Good morning, Jason. I love you. Always have. I'm so sorry for what I did. I wasn't myself. Forgive me. I'll do anything to make it up to you." "Do you really mean that?" I asked in disappointment one morning. "Yes," she answered quickly. "Then, Dana," I said sincerely, "let me go. Let the divorce go. You can win. You can have everything. I'll just leave." "I don't want everything we have," she said. "I just want you." "Dana, you had me," I said, "and you couldn't keep it." "You left me," she said. "You always leave me alone." "To make money you can live on," I said. "To give you the life you wanted." "I don't want this life," she said. "I just want you." "We've already figured that out," I said. "It just doesn't work." "It will work," she said. "I just need a little more time for things to get better." I looked at her and saw that she was sincere. She wanted me, but I was already on the edge. My heart couldn't stand all these games. "Dana, please," I said. "Let's stop this. I can't live like this anymore." She started crying and I felt guilty, but I couldn't take it anymore. I left for work, leaving her crying in the kitchen. I felt terrible all day and it interfered with my work. My colleagues noticed that something was wrong, but I couldn't discuss it at work. I was the boss and had to save face. That evening, I returned home and Dana was there again. She was preparing dinner and trying to look happy. She tried to be the perfect wife, but it only depressed me even more. We ate in silence, and she began her speech again. "I love you, Jason. I always have. I'm so sorry for what I did. Forgive me. I'll do anything to make it up to you." "Dana, I understand how you feel," I said, "but I can't do this anymore. We need to move on. We need to get a divorce." She cried again, and I felt even worse, but I knew it had to be done. I went to sleep in another room, leaving her crying in the kitchen. The next day, I spoke with the lawyer again and explained the situation to her. We decided that we would fight for the divorce and try to speed up the process. It was a long and difficult journey, but I was ready to fight for my freedom. Several months passed, and we finally got a divorce. It was painful, but I was able to move on. I left Dana the house and most of our assets, but I didn't care. I just wanted to be free. Now I'm single again, but I feel it's better than being in a toxic relationship. I continue to work and build my career, and perhaps someday I will find someone who will truly love and respect me. I'll do better, I said. I will sign a document saying it was my fault, or that I cheated on you. Just please let me go, I asked. 2 words, my husband, she said. Never, you will never leave me. I was stunned by the strength of her tone. All sorts of nightmare scenarios flashed through my head. Most of them involved me being trapped in hell for some nameless sin I had committed, and Dana being a sexier, albeit crazed, version of the devil. And if I can have everything, why can't I just have you? She asked, pouting her lips like a little girl who had been caught with her hand in the cookie jar, but still wanted to keep her cookies. I meant all our stuff, I said. I don't need all this crap, she said. I just want you back. A couple of nights later, I woke up in the middle of the night with Dana satisfying me. I pushed away from her and went into another room. This did me no good because she now had a key to every room. Listen, Dana, I said, you can sleep in the same room as me, but you have no right to touch me. So can we sleep together? She asked joyfully. Yes, I said, only if you don't touch me. The next night Dana came to bed wearing a flannel robe from head to toe. I went to bed and she lay down next to me. She rolled over as close to me as she could without touching me. I felt her warmth all night and it drove me crazy. The next morning I woke up and my arms were hugging her breasts and she was clinging to me. I got up and went to take a cold shower, and she just laughed. That night there was a real attack. I was watching TV when Dana entered the living room. She was only wearing a tiny thong which she wore to torment me. Do you mind if I watch with you? She asked. Dana, there are at least 6 televisions in this house, I said. Jason, I won't touch you and I won't go anywhere, so we can try to get along, she said. As you say, I replied. Over the next 10 minutes, Dana continually stood up and bent over in front of me. She twirled her butt and did things that would make even a dancer blush. I got up and left. When I got into bed, she was already there. She moved over to make room for me, and we settled in for the night. Around midnight, I woke up because I thought I heard my name. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Dana. She satisfied herself as if I wasn't there. Oh, Jason, she said through clenched teeth. I want you so much, she said. Would you like to say Tima? I asked, interrupting her spell. She lay limp on the bed, embarrassed, and didn't say anything. I won't stop you, I said, standing up and heading towards the door. I'll give you some privacy. Dana jumped up and followed me. Sorry, she said. You have no idea how hard it is to lie here next to you. I haven't had sex since you. She began. Well, I have even longer, I said sharply. I'm not someone who slept with someone else while my spouse was away. She frowned a little when I said that. I wish I had done that, I added, because then maybe there would have been a reason I would have had to suffer through it. I just don't understand it, I continued. I've always treated you the best I can. I looked into her eyes to gauge her reaction. Maybe by watching her I could get a hint of her motivation. I never lied to you, hit you hell, I never even yelled at you, I said, yelling at her. I loved you so much that I never even looked at another woman, and believe me, I had opportunities, but I was so damn stupid, I continued. Whenever any woman, no matter how attractive she was, looked at me with anything other than a professional attitude, I immediately moved her on to someone else, I said. And for what? I shouted. So that the woman I loved more than anything in the world would stick a knife in my back, having fucked some kind of worm in my own home. And you don't even have the decency to just let it go, I said more quietly. You make me stay here, trying to seduce me night after night, and all I want is to be free, I said. I don't want to talk about it, I don't want revenge, I don't want to see you hurt, hell, I don't even want to see Tim hurt. I just want to move on with my life, I said. It will be better for you too, I said, noticing tears forming in her eyes. Really, it will be better. You can sleep with Tim and with anyone anytime, I said. All day, all night, nothing to hide, nothing to explain. Please just let me go, it's over, I said. Dana, if for some reason you wanted to offend me, you have already completed your mission. You already did it, Dana. You hurt me greatly. walking into this house, which is too big for the two of us, and seeing you bent over for Tim, I lost my heart. So you already win, just let me go before one of us does something terrible, I said. For a long time, it was so quiet that you could hear the crickets chirping in the yard. Jason, I'm really sorry, she said. You never did anything wrong, it's all me. My therapist made me see that there had been a hole in my life for a long time, she said. I need a lot of attention, she continued. When I was growing up, my parents adored me. When I went to school, there were always boys who wanted me and girls who wanted to be like me, she said. But now everyone has a career or a job, and I'm just a princess sitting in my tower alone, she said. I have the sweetest, most noble prince in the world, and he loves me so much that I live for him. And we have the most wonderful, intense, passionate sex in the world, she continued. But like all those fairy tales about princesses, the prince has to go fight a damn dragon or something, and he's always away, she said, her voice rising with every word. And the princess feels useless, like she's less than human, because what's the use of being a beautiful princess if you're always alone, she said. And you know that I love you, that no one could ever take your place, so I didn't try to choose anyone to fall in love with. Tim was just someone I could play with when I got bored. He was no better than a sex toy, she said. So if I got worked up and you weren't there, I'd just call Tim, she said. It was kind of funny. He would get out of bed with his little wife and rush to me, and most of the time I wouldn't even give him anything, she laughed. But no matter what it takes, if I have to give the lawyers all your money, my father's money, the company's money, she continued. I will never let you go, she smiled. And you can stop torturing yourself because you can't win. I will do anything to keep you, she said. If you don't like me walking around here naked, put an end to it. You can ease our suffering just like that, she said, snapping her fingers. Just come here and do what you want most, she smiled. Just take me, cowboy, she said. There is no law against having your own wife, she said. Just take me now, hard and fast. Get this anger out of your system, she said. You need to take back what is yours. Dana, what are you talking about? I asked. Are you still high? I wish Dana hadn't hurt me, I really did, but at that moment I just couldn't take it anymore. Dana has always been a walking wet dream, so I did what any man would do. I threw off my boxers and, without thinking, ran up to her and pushed her against the wall. There was no thought of tenderness, no love, no romance, only the animalistic copulation of two bodies that had been apart for too long. Dana, I said, I'm sorry if I hurt you, but I couldn't control myself. It didn't hurt, she said. You were very gentle. Then why are you crying? I asked her. Because I'm so happy, she said. For weeks now, I didn't think I even had a chance of getting you back. She said, I also didn't think you'd ever touch me again, she said. But now not only do I have you again, but there's a good chance we'll end up together, she said. Dana, there was always a slight chance that we would end up together, I laughed. I've always loved you so much, I said. Yes, but now you have no choice, she said, and I swear to you that I will never cheat on you again. Dana, all we did was have sex, I said. I didn't rape you, you even begged for it. So just because we had sex doesn't mean we're locked up together, I said. Well, under normal circumstances that might not be the case, she said. Of course you didn't take me by force, and I begged you about it, she continued. If you want it, we can even do it again, right now or whenever you want it, she said, smiling. Oh, I have a great idea. Why don't we go to my dad's house so you can fuck me on their dinner table, she said, smiling. What the hell are you talking about? I asked. I started to have a bad feeling about this. Ever since I got home, as you noticed, I've been running around naked, she said. I also stopped using birth control. Do you know that money can buy almost anything? She smiled at me again, as every nefarious bad guy in a movie always does when telling the hero the details of her plot to take over the world. I asked the doctor to give me some of those fertility drugs they give to women who can't get pregnant, she said. So, we are yours again, me and your child, she grinned. And I know you're not the kind of guy who would give up on his own child, she added. So, you and I will be together for at least the next 20 years, she said with another flash of her bad boy smile. And I know that you love me even though you are very angry with me. So in the end, I expect that love will win, and we will be happy again, she said, her face changing, even as the words came out of her mouth. That's all I needed, really. I needed something else to fill my life while you're at work, she said. So there will be no more affairs because I will have you, and when you are not around, I will have your child. Dana looked at me with a very smug expression on her face. I didn't know what to say or what to do. I love you, Jason. I will never let you go, she said, smiling, and then added, game over. I jumped away from her as quickly as I could. She just sat there with this smug look on her face. Don't take it so hard, baby, she said. I swear I will never do anything to hurt you again. I've been in hell since we broke up. I never want to go through that again, she said. At that moment, I really wanted to just beat the crap out of her, but I didn't. I quickly showered and got dressed. See you when you get back, honey, she said, smiling at me. Damn it, I was angry at myself. I needed to think, so I just got into my yellow Mustang and drove away. After driving around in the dark for a while, I realized I was hungry, so I finally pulled into the parking lot behind a cheap, greasy-looking little hot dog joint in Kenai Island. As I walked in, the smell of week-old grease and the sight of big fat flies reminded me of the places where I had eaten and hung out during my college time in Dana. I ordered a bowl of chili and a coney dog from a bored and sloppy man behind the counter. I looked at the badge on his once white apron, decorated with grease stains. The badge said, "My name is Flo," and I almost laughed. This guy didn't look like Florence. The only inhabitants of this place were two tired-looking women, clearly working girls. They looked like their useful sex life had come to an end because they had both gotten fat somewhere in the middle and were wearing even more than the usual amount of easy-to-get girl makeup. At some point, makeup makes a woman look more like a damn circus clown rather than highlighting and beautifying her facial features, and these two were beyond that. And yet, at that moment, I would have a much better chance of fucking one of them without a condom than I would of ever inserting my dick into Dana again. As they stood up to leave, they sized me up and looked me in the eyes. "Sorry, ladies, my soon-to-be ex-wife took all my money in the divorce," I said. "Well, I could make a freebie, so money isn't a problem," said the taller and uglier one. As they shrugged and walked off into the cool evening, I heard a familiar sound. A big, raucous V8 forced its way through an almost illegal exhaust system. For a second, I thought some idiot was trying to steal my car. Then I saw the headlights pull into the parking lot and stop right next to me. "What are the chances of this happening?" I asked. The guy entered the restaurant and looked around the place, as if looking for possible threats. There was no fear in his eyes. I just went there and experienced it. Look what all the cops and vets have. He came in and sat next to me, although there was plenty of space in the almost empty room. He caught Flo's eye and shouted his order. "2 horses with everything else and put pickles on them," he said, sitting down next to me, "to go." "Pickles add flavor," he said in response to my curious gaze. "What year?" I asked. "08 dark gray GT, he said. "06 screaming yellow GT, I replied. "I like your paint," he told me. "Sometimes I wish I had yours," I said. "There are times when I really want to avoid being noticed, and a bright yellow Mustang is damn hard to hide." "Lurking sounds good right now," he said. "Although you can't escape it," I began. "It's just like our cars." "How so?" he asked when the cook brought him a greasy bag. "Well, over here in the front, you see that horse running pony," I said. "This horse is a purely American symbol. It means freedom," I continued. "But if you look at a horse, he doesn't run away from shit," I said, looking at him. "This damn pony runs right into the thick of things, and that's what we are," I said. "So whoever they are," and then I hesitated. "Be that Mustang, run straight at them and give them hell." I think his back was a little straighter than when he came in, and he revved the engine a little louder than necessary as he pulled out of the parking lot. He roared the engine a little louder than necessary as he pulled out of the parking lot. I left soon after, and I think my own words came back to me. I've never been successful by hiding from my problems. I needed to face them head on, so the best I could do was just approach Dana as a problem. I won't let her determine my destiny or my life. I needed to find out if she was pregnant. If so, as she put it, I was stuck with her for the next 20 years, because despite the research on how children develop in families with divorced parents, I wasn't going to cause that to my child. If by some miracle she's not pregnant, that's when the real fun will begin. Driving through the dark streets early in the morning in an area called The Block, I saw a lot. I saw what I initially mistook for women who weren't. I also saw things that didn't look like women, but were. I saw literally hundreds of readily available women. Some of them were fresh and could have been any college student who just walked out of the dorm. Others were so exhausted from drugs and other things that they probably wouldn't have survived the night. And then suddenly, more by reflex than by any conscious decision, I suddenly slammed on the brakes. If I hadn't done this, she would have died. I was going about 40 miles per hour in a 25 miles per hour zone. She stood there with a deer caught in the headlights expression as I almost hit her. She really was, darling, caught in my headlights. She was no more than 22 years old, and she was beautiful. She was so beautiful that it took my breath away, but I got the impression that she either didn't know about it or didn't care. She had long, thick, wavy red hair that someone had casually dyed yellow blonde. The effect was almost as if her hair was on fire in the halogen headlights of my Mustang. I couldn't see the color of her eyes from that distance, but they were sharp and beautiful. Her lips, like the rest of her, were luscious and meant to be kissed. Her body was the same, the top part was larger than Dana's, and they weren't fake breasts. The jacket she wore to protect herself from the evening chill ended at her waist, and I silently thanked God for the small mercies. Even in her tight jeans, her ass was magnificent. Something about this future goddess seemed out of place here. It was like finding an angel statue in a dirty trash can. I wanted to take it out and display it in a church or museum. I expected her first words to be something grand and noble like, "Let them eat cake." But I was both disappointed and angry when she spoke up and destroyed my myth. "Stupid bastard," she spat. "Watch where you're going, idiot." "Stupid fool," I spat in response, driving away. So this fantasy ended. I spent the next few hours driving around town and returned to the driveway as the sun rose. I went upstairs and found Dana in the bedroom. Apparently, she hasn't done much since I left. I went to the bathroom and turned on the water in the bath, then went to the kitchen and set the coffee to brew. When I returned upstairs, I picked Dana up and carried her to the bathroom. She woke up and looked into my face as I carried her. "Where are you taking me?" she asked as I gently lowered her into a warm bath filled with her favorite bubble bath. "Oh, that feels so good," she said, smiling. "I thought you might be really mad at me. But you will see," she said. "We'll be very happy, baby." I know it was another bad thing, but it's for a very good cause. "What are you going to do while I'm at work?" I asked her, pretending that I cared. "Oh, first I'll just sit here and recover from this sex you gave me," she said. "Then I will start deciding which room we will convert into a nursery, and I will start choosing decorations and children's furniture. But it will be difficult until we find out the gender of the baby. Then I will make myself beautiful and sexy so that you come home. I need to start working out and stuff to keep my figure after all our kids," she continued. "I don't want to turn into the fat-assed wife you cheat on because she's no longer attractive." I couldn't believe my ears. Did she say all our children? "What do you want me to wear for you tonight?" she asked. I wanted to say muzzle, mask, and chastity belt, but I held my tongue. "You don't have to wear anything for me," I said. "Oh, so Daddy wants me naked again," she said, making me wonder what she heard. "Okay," she said softly, "but tonight can you make love to me instead of just having me?" "I'll probably still be a little sore," she said with a pout. I realized I just didn't understand this woman. What did I say to make her think we would ever have sex again? I changed into a business suit and headed to the office. Now I am working at the corporate headquarters. Kurt had a corner office, and so did I. I also had an office across town in the building that housed the offices of our now booming truck rental business. We also leased passenger cars and offered a leasing program for corporate fleets. I had several meetings, including one with the board of directors, where I spoke in detail about my trip last week and what we can expect. I also explained to them that my goal is to open offices in Canada for our logistics and rental company soon, and then enter the European market. It's time for Navaro's interests to expand globally. One of the directors asked why not South America before Europe. I explained that while the distance and proximity of South America, especially Mexico, makes sense, the political unrest makes South America too much of a risk at this time. All the directors were impressed, especially when I showed slides of crime rates and recent attacks on tourists and foreign nationals occurring on a daily basis. I spent the rest of the day, from early morning until early afternoon, looking at condo and loft listings online. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Kurt came to see me. He received the report of my meeting with the board of directors and was very pleased with my progress. He saw the detailed plans for my expansion. We again discussed my proposal to replace Tyler Criscos as CEO of the truck rental company with George and move Kurt Jr. to Coup. I explained to him that Tyler has a lot of experience, but he was only appointed to this position because he was an old friend of Kurt and could not go higher in the logistics company because there was already a CEO in logistics, Kurt, and I took the old one Tyler's position as Chief Operating Officer. George and Jr. have run this company from the beginning, I said. It's time for them to take over, and Tyler, no matter how nice he is always one step behind, I continued. He spends more time playing golf than working, I said. I know, Kurt said. I play with him every day. Does that mean you think I should leave too? He smiled. There is no one here willing to take your place, sir, I said. It will be a few more years before George and Junior are ready for the big picture, I said. I didn't think about them, he said. While I'm proud of my boys, you pushed them and made them develop far more than I ever expected them to. Then he broke our long-standing rule of not talking about personal matters in the office. How are you? He asked. Still crying for Dana. Sir, I still love her so much, but she keeps adding fuel to the fire, I said. I really think we would be better off if she moved or let me go, I continued. We just keep hurting each other over and over again. You just have to do it, he said. A couple of hours later, I was looking around an empty loft in the city center, not far from the embankment. The loft was perfect. Rough brick walls, thick carpet everywhere except the wood floor in the kitchen. A chrome staircase led upstairs to the sleeping area and second bathroom. It was one large room that was almost as big as some houses. How many garage spaces do I get? I asked the manager. How many do you need? He asked, looking at me strangely. At least 2, but 3 would be better, I said. $200 a month for each additional seat, he said. But I also have a large unit on the ground floor with a garage door facing the street. You could literally move into your living room, he said, looking at me strangely. Sold, I said, and wrote him a check for the first and last months of rent and a deposit. I probably won't move for a while because I need to buy furniture and sort out some details with my wife's lawyers, I said. Ah, he said. Now I understand the need for additional parking spaces. One of them is for your wife, he said. No, they are all for me. I will soon leave this crazy bitch, I said as I walked away. For the next few weeks, I lived a double life. At work, I was the same old Jason I always was. True, I spent a little of my time every day decorating my loft, but other than that, I was me. In the evenings, I was the best actor in the world. I treated Dana like she was covered in gold. I did everything she asked. We went to parties with her boring, arrogant, pretentious friends, and I pretended to enjoy it. Then we returned home and spent a lot of time together. The only thing she didn't like was that I insisted on wearing a condom when we had sex. I told her I wouldn't touch her without a condom until we're sure she hasn't caught something from Tim. We wouldn't want to harm the baby by passing the infection back and forth between us. She didn't like the idea at first, But for some reason, she thought a lot of sex was necessary for our continued growth as a couple. She told me at least 20 times a day how much she loved me and how sorry she was. She even told me that she knew it would take time for me to trust her again and be able to express my feelings for her. But she was patient and willing to wait. Dana literally turned into a bitch. She did everything I wanted without hesitation. Nothing was too dirty or disgusting. There was nothing that was forbidden in sex. Dana didn't know, but we were both expecting the same thing. And then one morning it happened. While we were having breakfast, the phone rang. I automatically picked up the phone. "Hi, Jason," the voice said. "This is Ralph Derrico. I'm afraid I have bad news for you," he said. "I just got her tests back." My heart stopped for a moment. Derrico was Dana's doctor. I asked him to do a DNA test to make sure I was the father as soon as possible. I didn't expect results so quickly. It only took 3 or 4 weeks. I was hoping it would be Tim's baby and I would just end up with Dana, or I will accept my fate. "You'll just have to try again," he said. "But at least you're both healthy." "What?" I barked. It seems he misunderstood. He mistook my surprise for anger or disappointment. "Listen, it's not the end of the world," he said. "Dana is simply not pregnant. You can still try again," he continued as I hung up. I looked across the table at Dana, who was eating her breakfast. Looking at her, I thought about nature. The woman was like many plants, truly beautiful to look at, but inside she was full of poison. Well, I thought, one more time to say goodbye. Dana knew that I liked to look at her, so she usually kept the temperature in the house very high and walked around almost naked. She was tall, blonde, and slender, with beautiful, perky breasts and narrow hips, like those models and TV presenters. I took the piece of toast from her hands and lifted her up. Then I hugged her and put her on the kitchen table. She wrapped her legs around my waist and started kissing me. She read an article that stated that many women feel constantly horny during pregnancy, and I think she was sure that she would have a child. The child was supposed to be the thing that would bind us together forever. We had names chosen. Kurt after her father if it's a boy, or Verna after her mother if it's a girl. Verna was, of course, my idea. I admit that that morning was my signature scene. When I took a shower, already late for work, I left Dana lying on the kitchen floor. "It was so good," she said as I stepped into the shower, smiling. "We'll probably need more condoms," she yelled at me so I could hear her over the noise of the shower. "No, they won't be needed," I shouted back to her, drying myself off. "Why don't we need more condoms?" she asked. "Because we are healthy," I told her. "Was that the doctor on the phone?" she asked when I took my briefcase. "Yes," I replied. "Oh, so now we can do it without condoms," she said. "That's why you're so happy," she said. I hugged her and looked into her eyes. "No, that's not the reason I'm so happy," I said. She gasped and looked at me with glassy eyes when I let her go. "Take the day off and take me again," she said, her voice full of desire. "No," I said. "I have a meeting with your father." "Well, I know someone who will definitely get me tonight," she said. "Well, you can tell Tim to enjoy it," I told her. She looked at me with indignation written all over her face. "I haven't touched Tim or anyone else besides you since." She trailed off, missing the words, "since you caught me with him." "We're starting our family now," she said. "And maybe this is not the way you wanted, but nothing can be done. And even you have to admit, the last 3 weeks have been wonderful," she said, whining. "I love you so much more, there is no need to remember Tim. That was in the past," she continued. "It was a terrible mistake, but the future is you, me, and our child. That's why I had to play all these games with you, because I knew you still loved me, and it really wasn't much of a challenge," she said. "Every man I've ever met has always wanted me, but you're the only one I want," she said. "I'm sorry it was necessary to deceive you, but we are happy again, and I swear to you that I will never do this again." "Dana, since every man you meet wants you, you don't need me," I said, smiling. "What are you talking about?" she asked. "And I have a question for you. If the doctor said we don't have STDs, why did you use condoms?" she asked. Because I wanted a goodbye time and you're not pregnant, I said. Dana's face darkened with disappointment as I walked out the door. That was 8 months ago, and now I'm very careful. Dana catches me at work every now and then and starts talking about getting back together or how much she misses me. She made no secret of the fact that, in her opinion, even despite our divorce, she still owned me and I still owned her. My divorce was finalized some time ago, and I have lived like a monk ever since. I go to work, stay there most of the time until I sleep, then go home only to sleep, shower, and go back to work. This is my schedule, 7 days a week. Even Kurt insisted that I take time off. When he found out what Dana tried to do to me, he was truly speechless and told me so. I, believe it or not, found myself trying to explain at least what I thought were the reasons for her actions. Some single and divorced women at work would give me hints or try to introduce me to their friends or relatives who they thought would be ideal for me. I refused to date or even have women as friends. But lately loneliness has begun to overcome me. My character has become shorter and my movie list for adults, which I have, became longer. I needed something, even if it was just one night. I didn't want to turn to sex services where traces would remain. If I was going to do this, it had to be quick, cheap, and dirty. That's how I ended up on the street. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.